What's up? Prime time for college football. This is TJ here. It's been a little while, but my buddy Jay is on the road. I'm going to get him in here for just a moment to chat with us a little bit about our video today. But I think ESPN has really high expectations for Colorado going forward. And I just want to talk about that a little bit. Hey, thank you guys for tuning in today. Thank you to BetUS for their support on this channel. Some of you guys have asked where I've been. I've been over at College Football Addiction. You can certainly go check that out at any point. We're talking about Colorado just about every single week. But, of course, make sure you're subscribed here at the Prime Time for College Football. Jay will be back soon. And, again, I'm going to have him in on this video too. So, for those of you that missed me, glad to be back. Glad to be back chatting with you here on a channel that we had a ton of fun on over the last year and a half. And for those of you that were happy to see me gone, I apologize for you having to look at my face again this afternoon. Colorado coming off of a really tough loss to Kansas State. I talked about that with Jay over on College Football Addiction. But man, a little bit of a discouraging loss. You were so close to pulling out a victory that it felt like Kansas State would have. It was theirs to take, right? They had the lead. They were driving. You get the pick. You take it all the way back. You score to take a lead with 3 minutes left, and you're like, man, we are going to steal victory from the jaws of defeat. And your defense, unfortunately, lets you down. Now, players have come out and taken accountability. Shiloh, coach's son, has come out and taken accountability. Hey, I'm going to be better. He got absolutely roasted on social media, and I don't necessarily ever like to see that when people go, like, kids make mistakes, and that's fine. But I do like the ownership. I do like that he came out and said, like, no, we're going to be better. Like, this isn't going to be a thing going forward. But, man, a game that you just felt like was so close. And I hate moral victories. I talked with Jay about that as well over on the other channel. I hate the moral victory thing. But the one thing that I will say is that last year's Colorado team probably ends up letting that game snowball and get away from them. And it turns into, it goes from a frustrating loss, a loss where you felt like you had a chance in the end and you just kind of blew it. It goes from that to an embarrassing loss where you end up dropping that game and you lose it by 17, 20, 21, just because you don't have that fight. You didn't have enough talent. The wide receivers weren't as good. The offensive line was worse last year. The defense was not as good. And last year's team, I think if they get down by double digits to Kansas State, a really good Kansas State team, I think Kansas State ends up rolling them. And I think we're looking at Colorado a lot differently. I think we're looking at them like, man, here we go again. That's not what happened. And again, I hate the moral victory thing. I'm not telling you to celebrate a loss or anything like that. But I do think the fight and the determination and the will and the find a way that Colorado has this year is so much different than last year. And you can throw all the moral victory crap out the window, but it is what gives me hope for the rest of the season. I chatted with Jay about that a little bit. First, I want to give some love to BetUS, and then we'll talk with Jay. If you're not betting at BetUS this year, our really good partners, our really good friends, you need to fix that. You need to get on the boat right now and make sure that you're betting with BetUS. They've got a deposit bonus right now of 150% if you use the code YouTube150. That's YouTube150. Gets you that 150% deposit bonus. Your next two deposit bonuses are up to 125%. All of that up to $2,000. Make sure that you're betting responsibly and using our friends over at BetUS. Again, the code is YouTube150. Let's chat with Jay. Big picture, looking at the season, we've got Jay again from the Prime Time for College Football on 4-2, probably about where we expected them to be at this point, maybe even a tick above that. I mean, their Vegas win total was 5.5, so they're just a game and a half away from that. And what's interesting to me, Jay, is when you look at ESPN's FPI, these are close percentages, but ESPN says Colorado should eke out every single one of these remaining games. It says they've got a 59% chance to beat Arizona, a 62% chance to beat Cincy, a 52% on the road at Texas Tech. That one's the closest that it gets. Utah at a 61% chance, again, with their backup quarterback and Rising done for the year, probably coming back for his 75th year next year. Kansas, another close one, 52.7. They've not been super impressive this year. And then their biggest chance for a win, according to ESPN, 63.5 against Oklahoma State. Yeah, I'm not predicting them to go 6-0 down the stretch, but I will say if they go 6-0 down the stretch, they're going to be talked about as well. I mean, I think 10-2 probably gets Coach Prime in, just being very fair. You've got a really good loss to a Nebraska team that is looking like a pretty good team. They're 5-1, and you've got a good loss to a Kansas State team that's probably going to be in the Big 12 championship game. And so, not sitting here predicting 6-0, but like every goal that Coach Prime and the team had before the season is still kind of there. And if they can take care of business week by week, stay healthy, they're going to have a pretty good chance to have 8, 9, 10 wins when it all is said and done.
Yeah, the schedule's very favorable now. Oklahoma State has not been very good. Utah losing Cam Rising and not looking very good. That actually bodes very well for what the Buffs are trying to do. In my prediction, I had Colorado at this point with only one loss, and I thought it was going to be the cross-country travel to play against UCF. I was obviously wrong. It ended up being Nebraska and now Kansas State, which I thought they would win that game at home. They could have closed it, but they just could not close it out the way they needed to. But the rest of these games are definitely winnable. Arizona has not looked very good this season. They're one team that I used to always bet on because they, always took care of your boy. This year, they have not taken care of me. And going through the rest of the schedule, I believe that the Buffs have it. They got a pretty good, favorable look going forward. And like you said, the win total was 5.5. People did not think that they could even outdo what they did last season at 4 wins. Well, they've already got to last season's wins, and they're going to end up probably winning more. They have a very good chance. All they've got to do is execute in Arizona. With Travis playing, to me, I would limit his defensive play because it's a shoulder injury. I'd be more concerned about that. He does a really good job of getting down on offense when he's catching passes and preventing himself from really getting lit. But on defense, he's going to have to lay the hammer on some folks. And if you really want him out there on T. McMillan, you really, really do. But you also don't want him to have to go out and tackle a whole bunch of people. So to me, I would want Travis to play more offense than defense in that game because that's going to keep that continuity and let some of the other players play out there in the secondary. But, man, it's going to be a tough one to decide. Do you put Travis out there against T. McMillan or not? Because you really do. McMillan's a monster.
Yeah.
And when Fafita is going and he's going to him, that's where your problems are going to be.
All right, so like Jay said, everything that Colorado wants and the goals that they had are still out there. I don't think anybody realistically thought that Colorado was going 12-0 this year. I know Colorado fans, I know Coach Prime fans, Deion Sanders fans. I know we all wanted that. I know that was something that people were, man, that would be amazing. But when you really take a step back and you look at their losses, a really tough loss on the road to Nebraska, a Nebraska team that's 5-1, playing another ranked game this weekend. If they win that, they're going to be ranked going to Ohio State next week. A Nebraska team that could certainly still win 9 or so games this year, maybe be a playoff contender, maybe in that fringe conversation if they can continue to string together wins. You look at their other loss, a Kansas State team that I think is going to the Big 12 championship, a team that has a really, really good chance to end up seeing BYU in that game, and the winner of that will probably go to the playoff. And you think about it from that perspective, and you think, well, you lost 2 games that you were extremely close in. You had a really bad first half against Nebraska. You fought back, couldn't get it all the way done. And then you had a game where you had a very, very good chance to beat Kansas State. And outside of that, you've taken care of business. You've done what you needed to do. The defense has been much improved this year. The offense is a little more balanced. Jay talks about it. We definitely need to see the running game get a little bit better. But then you look at what ESPN is telling you, and I talked about it with Jay, not to go through every single percentage again, but I really like them this weekend against Arizona. I think that if Hunter is close to 100%, can shut down McMillan, I think they'll have a really good shot at beating Arizona on the road. ESPN has Colorado at about a 60% to win that thing. I think Cincinnati is a game that Colorado absolutely should win. Outside of just collapsing, that's a win to me. Texas Tech is an up and down team. I know they beat they beat this Arizona team that we're talking about. Really close game. On the road is tough. It's not always easy to go play on the road, but you look how they've played on the road. You look at that UCF game. I don't worry about that a ton. I think that if they can get this win against Arizona, there's a really good chance they could go beat Texas Tech in a few weeks and get that win as well. Utah is a game that I did not think Colorado could win earlier in the year. I think that Utah losing their quarterback, Utah just kind of being a mess right now overall, under Whittingham, just due to injuries, due to different things. That's a very, very winnable game. Kansas, again, one of the preseason favorites to win the Big 12. They've not been very impressive. And then Oklahoma State. I think that's probably your most likely win of the rest of them. That's what ESPN thinks at 63.5% chance. The problem is you got to go out and take care of business. You got to go out and do it. It can't just be, oh, well, we feel good about this one, or we think we have a chance in this one. I very much think that this is a situation where any of these remaining teams could beat you, but you absolutely could and should win most of the games down the stretch. And what's that mean for Colorado? Well, Colorado wins their next three, right? They go on the road and they get the win against Arizona in a game that, thank God, is not at 10:30 Eastern this weekend, a 4 p.m. kickoff Eastern time, one if you're out there on the West Coast. I think that is good news for Colorado. I hate the late game. I hate it for me just because I'm old and can't stay up like I used to. But I think if you get the win there, you're going to beat Cincinnati. And then that Texas Tech game becomes massive. You win the next three, you get to 7-2, you're ranked at that point. They're talking about you as a possible playoff team based on what happens other places in the Big 12. You may be in consideration for the Big 12 championship game. I think that things are setting up for Colorado to have a really nice finish to the year. Vegas didn't think that Colorado would be able to even get to 6 wins, and you're very, very close to that. I'd be shocked if they didn't make a bowl at this point. And when you really zoom out, you really look at it from the perspective of where they're at. Man, last offseason, I was telling you guys, getting to the Big 12 is going to be easier for Colorado than playing in the Pac-12. And it has been, and it will be going forward. I think Colorado's talent will take over and has taken over in games, and I think that that's what's going to carry them. But if you really zoom out and you look at it from that 30,000-foot view, Colorado won one game a couple of years ago, and then they had a 300% increase to get to 4 wins. Even if they just match their first half of the year total at 4 wins and they go from 1 to 4 to 8, that is very clearly progress. That is very clearly building in the right direction. Now, I know Colorado fans, Coach Prime fans are not going to be happy with just 8 wins. But when you look at it from the grand scheme, when you look at it from the very, very far zoomed out scheme, to go from 1 to 4 to 8 is massive. Again, you got to go out and take care of business. You can't be dropping games you're not supposed to drop. You can't be losing as a favorite against Cincinnati or Utah or Oklahoma State. But you do have a chance to really set yourself up for the future and be thought of as a different kind of program. I think that's really big for Colorado. I think that's really big for Coach Prime right now. And I also think that if you get to that 7-2, you win your next 3, and you've got 3 very winnable games down the stretch in Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State, I think that's when you start to hear the chatter about playoffs, about buzz around Travis Hunter's Heisman, which is already way up there in the odds. That's where things start to look a little bit different. You know what they're doing in recruiting. You know some of the targets they're going after. You know some of the quarterbacks they're targeting that are committed to different places. We don't have to go into all that. But Colorado has an opportunity right now through the back half of this schedule. ESPN says they should do it. ESPN says they should be in that conversation for the playoff, the Heisman, all those things, the Big 12, if some things break their way. But going to the Big 12 or not, they ain't keeping a 10-2 Colorado team out of the playoff. In fact, with how crazy college football has been, a 9-3 team would certainly be one that gets mentioned. I don't know if they make it or not, but they would certainly get mentioned as a possible team for the playoff. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to know what you think about how they do in the second half of the year. You need better O-line play. You need better defensive play, especially in the secondary when Hunter may be banged up, maybe not there. Again, it's a great thing that he's back, but is he 100%? Those are things we're going to have to monitor, see, find out how they go. And if Colorado can get hot, if they can kind of rebound from the loss against Kansas State, don't let one loss turn into 2, turn into 3, turn into 4 like they did last year. Last year, they finished the year very poorly, and they let the things snowball. If they can avoid that, if they can kind of string a few wins together here, which I think they will, you're going to be talking about some pretty crazy things for Colorado as it gets later in the year. Listen, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I appreciate BetUS for their support. Want to hear from you down in the comments. I'll monitor them from not only this account, but also the College Football Addiction account. Appreciate, again, BetUS, you guys, Jay, all of those involved with making this content possible. And we will talk to you guys soon here on the Prime Time for College Football.
If you enjoy these mashups with me and TJ, check out College Football Addiction. Make sure you're subscribed there, as well as the Prime Time for College Football, where I'm talking Colorado and Deion Sanders and Coach Prime, everything over at Prime Time. So make sure you subscribe to both channels. Check us out. We'll do a lot more mashups if you guys enjoy it, but we appreciate the time.